I'm so glad that I get to be here with you tonight. If you don't know me yet, my name's Caleb Sarber, and I'm a youth ministry resident here with Doxology Bible Church. And what that means is it's just a fancy way of saying that I work for Jack. You know, he's teaching over there tonight, but I get to hang out with him during the week, and we do a lot of fun, creative stuff. Isn't it? Don't you wish you could hang out with Jack all week? He's hilarious. Well, this is God's church, so he. Don't remember. All right, we're moving on. All right, so everyone, everyone with me, right up here. So summer is officially over, right, and fall has arrived. And you want to know how I know that it's fall? Earlier, before I came to the bridge, I was at Tom Thumb, right, just down the road on Hewlin. And I walked in, and the first thing I saw there was an advertisement for pumpkin spice lattes. I was like, oh my gosh, fall is here. But I'm not going to get a pumpkin spice latte right now because it's like 100 degrees outside still. It's too hot for a warm drink, Wait 5 days. All right. But as I look back on the summer, we probably had one of the most epic kickstarts to a summer season yet. Right? This past summer, we witnessed and we got to take part in one of the greatest events in cinematic history. Right, we got to watch Avengers Endgame. Right, who here saw that film? Who watched it? Right, who isn't over it yet? Who's still a fan? Who's still watching? Right, who's gonna go home and watch it now that I talked about it? Right, and that's probably what I'm gonna do. Right, all right, everyone, bring it back. Right, so 10 plus years of filming, and 20 plus films later, we arrived at the conclusion of this epic, grand story that began with Tony Stark in a cave in a desert, right? And if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame yet, I'd be surprised if it hasn't been spoiled for you already. And I'm not going to say anything specific about what happens, but I am going to make some general references to the end, not anything specific, so don't worry. But what I find particularly sad and also powerful about the ending of Avengers Endgame is the departure of several of the prominent characters from the spotlight. And what do I mean by that? What's going on? What am I talking about? Right, over the past 10 years, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor have dominated the big screens, right? Like, we pay top dollar to go and see these guys act, to go and see them take down the biggest, baddest enemies of our day and to make the funniest jokes. Right, and sometimes we go to the theaters to see it twice or 3 times. When the first Avengers came out, I went and I saw it like 3 or 4 times in theaters. I thought it was that good. Right? It's so cool. I was like your age when it came out. Right, but these 3 guys, they're not, they're now hanging up their capes. They're now like they're not going to be I'm the big superstar of the movie. Ooh, look at me, I'm cool. No, they're hanging up that cape, right? And they're not going to dominate the main screen. But the Avengers haven't always been just these 3 big, powerful dudes, right? They haven't been about themselves. Or if the Avengers fell apart because these guys left and they're not in the spotlight anymore, they're not the big heroes taking out the big bad guys, then they would have been unsuccessful in what they were trying to do in this story. Right? Each of these heroes, along their journey and along the way, they met and they raised up other heroes that would carry on their mission and their legacy when they were no longer around. All right, so let's take a little quiz tonight. Can we do that? Can I take a quiz with y'all tonight? It's going to be easier than the ones we took earlier. Y'all took earlier today. Don't worry. But so I'll start off with a really easy question. Right? Which hero did Iron Man raise up to take his place? Shout it out. Spider-Man. Yeah, I heard it. Spider-Man. All right. All right, next one. Let's go on to the next one. Y'all got it. You got it. Shh. Let's bring it back. All right, now what about Captain America? Falcon, exactly. Y'all got it. All right, now what about, might be a trickier one. What about Thor? Right, I had to go look this one up myself. I couldn't remember her name. But Thor has this girl named Valkyrie, right? So each of these guys, let's bring it back. Each of these guys, they raised up a leader who would carry on their vision and their legacy in their absence when they're not on the screen as much anymore. Now, not all three of them are gone, I know, but they're not going to be the main hero. They're not going to dominate the lines in the story, the time on the screen, right? So these past few weeks, what have we been talking about? We've been talking a lot about multiplication, right? And not the math kind, right? You know, we just did a lot of math today, Caleb. Why are we talking about math? No. I get it. You don't have to tell me that. So you don't have to tell me twice. But the influence and the discipleship kind of multiplication, the kind that Jesus talked about in the Bible and in these life books that we've been studying together, right? And so similarly to Tony and Steve and Thor raising up heroes that would take their place in their absence, we as Christians, we're called to find and raise up new leaders, new heroes that will carry the good news of the gospel throughout the entire world, especially when we are not around anymore, when we move and when we're gone from this earth. And tonight, we'll see that multipliers who make an impact know how to raise up multipliers who will raise up multipliers. I'll say it again. Multipliers who make an impact know how to raise up multipliers who will raise up multipliers. In short, we say this in a couple of words. Multipliers make multipliers that multiply. Or try to say that 5 times fast. Multipliers, multiply. I can't even say it once, right? Yeah. All right, so go ahead and grab your copy of the life book. There should have been one underneath your chair or somewhere around your chair. Right? And if you don't have one, raise your hand, and we'll get a leader, someone to come and bring one to you. So go ahead and grab these. And we're going to be in the very last, towards the very end of this book, so page 81. All right, page 81. It is like one of the last pages of the Gospel of Mark. And so to recap what we've been going through with this, we've been using these books, these life books, to read and study the Gospel of Mark. And the Gospel of Mark is unique among all 4 of the Gospels. Each of them are unique, right? They're all different, but this one is unique in a really special way to me. Right? Mark, he kicks off this story very suddenly and quickly. Right? It's like you're jumping into this in the middle of an intense action movie where you start reading this one, and we're flying through it. We go from 0 to 60 in like a few seconds. Right? Jesus is doing ministry. He's gathering his people together. He's doing miracles. He's casting out demons just right away in the first couple of chapters. Right? And he won't slow down. But each week here at the Bridge, we have been pumping the brakes a little bit on the story, and we've been looking at specific elements of Jesus' teaching and his ministry. All right, and so this week we're picking up the story right after Jesus is resurrected from the dead. And it's helpful to know that throughout his ministry, Jesus told his followers, he told them that he would die a tragic death and that he would rise again from the grave, from the death, from being dead. And he told them that several times, but they wouldn't get it. They were like, man, no way, Jesus, like you're not going to die, man. Like, that will not happen to you. In fact, Peter, like one of Jesus' main men, the guy that, wouldn't deny him, so he's like, I'm not going to deny you, but then he did, and then the rooster crowed, that guy. He even said, Jesus, like, you can't die. That will not happen to you at all. But most of the time, what Jesus said about his death and his resurrection just flew right over their heads, or right over the disciples' heads, just one in one ear, right out the other. Right? And even after he resurrected from the dead, other people had tried to tell him, like, hey, guys, like, they tried to tell his followers, hey, guys, look, you're not going to believe this. I just saw Jesus. He is alive. We thought he was dead, but no, he is here. We were with him, right? But even then, like you would think that his disciples would be like, what? Like, I can't believe this is really happening. He said that might happen, but I didn't know. I guess I didn't believe him. You think that's how they would respond, but they really didn't. They were still like, nah, like, I don't buy into that. I don't see it. And it wasn't until here on page 81, where we're going to pick up the story, when Jesus meets up with his disciples, with his followers, that they begin to believe. All right, so we're at the top of page 81, beginning right after the Great Commission title. And it says, afterward, he, and that's Jesus, he appeared to the 11 themselves as they were reclining at the table. Right, so they're hanging out. These guys are just chilling at the table, and maybe they're confused about what happened to their hero, what happened to Jesus. They're not sure what to do. Right, and Jesus appears there. He appeared there to them. And it says that he rebuked them for their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they had not believed those who saw him after he had risen. Right, so I'm going to give you all a couple of definitions for some of these words and phrases if you don't know what they are. So to rebuke means to criticize, right? To disapprove of someone's actions or lack of actions in the case of the disciples here, and then to criticize them for it. Right? I'm sure that we've all been rebuked by our parents or guardians at some point for like a messy room, or you're not doing your homework, you're not taking care of your responsibilities, right? We've all experienced that. I've experienced it. If you're not raising your hand right now, you're probably lying, right? Like that. We've all been told that we're not doing something that our parents want us to do or that our guardians ask us to do, right? And then what does hardness of heart mean? It says that he rebuked them for their unbelief and hardness of heart. What is that? Well, it means that your heart and your feelings and your emotions are numb and as hard as stone towards God. And in contrast, a heart that is open to God, right, is soft, it's malleable, it can be transformed. You ever tried to play with like really hard Play-Doh? Like you can't do anything with it. It's just like a rock. And it really like you just drop it, nothing happens, right? But if you have soft Play-Doh, if it's something that you can bend and break and mess around with, like you can create anything. Anything that you could possibly imagine, you can create with that. And that's what Jesus is trying to do with his people, with his followers. All right, so let's pick the story back up. I'm back on page 81. All right, so Jesus, he's rebuked his followers through disbelief and their hardness of heart. It says, and it's still Jesus, he said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Right, this is the moment when Jesus says to his followers, it's your time now. I'm fixing to leave. In a couple of verses, he's stepping out of the scene. Not for, like, he's not gone forever, but he's gone physically. He's in heaven. It's their time now. It's the disciples' time. And they got to go and be the hero maker. They've got to be the multiplier that makes multipliers, that makes multipliers. All right, this is like the moment at the end of Avengers Endgame when Thor is talking to Valkyrie, and they're looking over New Asgard, and Thor's like, I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm about to move on to something else. And now you're going to be in charge. You're going to be the leader of New Asgard. Right? This is like that moment. Like this is the moment where leadership is handed off. Right? This is also like the moment when Captain America, he hands the shield over to the Falcon. Right? And so every great leader has a moment where they hand off their leadership to someone they have been raising up. I'll say it again. Every great leader has a moment where they hand off leadership to someone that they have been raising up. Right? So let's assume, I'll give you all the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that you're trying to do this, where you're talking with your classmates and your friends and those that you're around in your spheres, and you're talking about the question that we talked about last week. Right? Anybody remember what the question was last week? The hard question. Who do you think Jesus is? Who do you say Jesus is? Let's say you're talking to your friends about that. Right? But they really don't care. Right? Maybe they mock you. They shut you up when you bring up Jesus, when you bring up spiritual topics. Right? Has anyone experienced that? Because I definitely have. That's happened to me a lot. Right? But can I give you a little bit of hope? Can I give you a little bit of advice and show you something that's really cool? Like, God did this, and this was amazing. All right, when I was in middle school, when I was in your shoes, I was the classmate, I was the friend that shut people up, that said, I don't want to hear it. I don't care what you have to say about Jesus. I'm not interested. Right? But I had a friend that despite all that, one of my friends that was trying to tell me about Jesus, despite all that, he stuck around. Despite my ignorance, despite my rejection, he still cared about me. He was still my friend. And it wasn't until I finally realized what Jesus had done, dying on the cross, that I deserved, dying the death I deserved for the sins that I committed, and made a way for me to believe and to be connected to God, right? And to realize that my friend was still around despite my sin, despite my rejection of him. When all those things started to click for me, I was like, wow. Like, I turned my back on my friend. I shut him down when he was trying to care about me. Right? And he didn't abandon ship because it was hard or because it was awkward or because it was uncomfortable. And look where I'm at right now. Right? I'm standing on this stage. I'm talking with you about the importance of being a Jesus follower and helping others understand what it means to walk with Jesus, to have hope, to find freedom. Right? And that's not because of something that I did. It's because of something that Jesus did through me and because of what my friend did in sticking around. Right? And if he can do that, if he can stick around when it's hard and challenging, when he was in 5th grade and in 6th grade and in 7th grade and in 8th grade, when I didn't care at all, then I think y'all can do that too, each and every one of you. And then consider the Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul, he wrote half of the New Testament. The Gospel of Mark can be found in the New Testament. And Paul wrote half of the New Testament. All right, but he was not always a Christian. He hunted Christians. He persecuted Christians. He mocked them. He even killed them because he disagreed with them and saw them as a threat. But God actually used Paul eventually, right? He used Paul to kickstart the greatest multiplication movement in all of human history. That's Christianity. Because of what Paul did, that's why we're here. Because that's why we're here today. And what I want y'all to see with this is that Jesus uses ordinary people like you and me, and even the unlikely people like Paul, to reach the world with the gospel. Right? Jesus uses ordinary people and even the unlikely people to reach the world with the gospel. Right? And so when you commit to making multipliers that multiply, or when you commit to spiritual multiplication, something beautiful and amazing happens, right? And that, my friends, is where these M&Ms come in. I know y'all have been looking at these. Y'all have been like, oh, whoa, why does he have M&Ms up there? I really want some. I had dinner earlier. It's time for me to have them. Send them my way. But hold on a second. Hold on. Let's reel it back in a bit. All right, see, when you're intentional and purposeful about spiritually multiplying, right, that will have a massive effect, a large effect, right? We got this party-sized bag of peanut M&Ms, so delicious. I can smell them through the bag. Isn't that crazy? It's so good. I'm excited to dig in. But when you bring it back in, right? So this party-size, like huge bag. So, and in contrast, right, when those that really don't care about being purposeful, about multiplying, if maybe they're like, kind of casually do it, I don't want to go out of my way, I don't want to be vulnerable, I don't want to be uncomfortable, I'll just kind of let people come to me and ask me the questions about Jesus, and then if that happens, then maybe I'll do it, right? If you go that route, if you try to do it by accident, like you're going to be like this little fun-size bag of peanut M&Ms, right? They're still good, it still tastes good, but like it's not going to be nearly as impactful as if you were committed to being faithful and deliberate about multiplying and loving your friends and being faithful, right? So now that was just an analogy, and I want to show you one of the flaws of it and to emphasize that it's really not about the numbers, right? Spiritual multiplication is not about how many people, it's not about how many M&Ms you have in your bag or how few you have in your bag, right? It's not about that, right? Large numbers are not why we do this. We love people and offer hope to people because that's what Jesus did for us. It's not about how many people you can get in this room on a Wednesday night, but it's about being faithful to love and serve people. And maybe that means, they want to come hear about the gospel. They want to come meet your friends. They want to come meet the people that love and serve you. Right? And so, and when you do that, there's a great consequence, and that has a ripple effect. Right? So someone else did this math I found, I stumbled upon. I'm not going to do the math. We're not going to do math in here, right? And they discover that if you commit to making 2 disciples every year, that will then make 2 disciples every year. So you make 2 disciples, and then both of them make 2, and then all 4 of them make 2, and so on and so forth. Right? Then after just 20 years of doing that, you'll have made 3 billion disciples. With a B, not a million, right, but billion. That's a lot of people. That's half the size of the planet right now. All right, so let's say that the average age in this room is about 12. How many of y'all are 12 years old? Right, you got a good handful of y'all. That's about half-ish. Right, so let's say you started at age 12. If you committed to doing that every year, and then you taught somebody to do that every year for 20 years, then there'll be 3 billion disciples by the time you're age 32. Isn't that crazy? Right? Now that's just one person doing it. Imagine if your whole small group did that. Imagine if this whole room did that. There may not be enough people to go around for disciple making, right? With so many people in here, right? But that's a huge number, and that can seem like daunting. And like, what the heck? Like, what do you mean I can make 3 billion disciples? That doesn't make any sense, right? But it's the act of being faithful to the 2 in this time of your life, to the 1 or the 2 or the people that are being faithful to them. All right, and let me fill you all in a little secret with this. All right, check this out. All right, us, the staff here at Doxology, and your leaders, and the volunteers every week, but we don't have this figured out. All right, we're still learning and growing. We're not perfect people. I don't know, huge secret, big secret, right? Don't tell anyone. Make sure you don't tell Nate later, right? But I want y'all to see that, all that fun and jokes aside, like I have been walking with Jesus for almost 10 years, a full decade. And if I'm being honest with you, there are not 2 people each year that I can point to that I said, yeah, I walked with them through the process of they're not a believer. They don't know, they don't care, they're mocking me, to like, oh, now they are a believer and they're interested and they're like growing and they want to talk about this, to like, oh, they've caught the vision. They want to go multiply and find more heroes that can share the gospel, right? I haven't done that with 2 people every year for the past 10 years. But, and don't miss this point. This is really, really important. There are people in each of those years that I walked with at a different point in that process. And sometimes it's not going to seem like you have to, but maybe you're walking alongside somebody, right, that is a fellow believer. And you help them understand the importance of multiplication, and you encourage them to do that. You help them figure it out. That's a big step, right? Or maybe you're talking to somebody who's struggling and they're suffering and they have a hard time. They don't feel like they have any hope. And you offer that hope to them, right? And they see Jesus and they want to figure that out. That's a huge step. Maybe they don't begin a relationship with Jesus, but you still did that, and they still feel like they can trust you because of what you said. That's still a big step towards this, right? And so sometimes we don't know what's going to happen with our words and with our actions. Like they sometimes can have an unintended, unpredictable consequence that we did not see coming. All right, so how do we ensure that they will leave a good impression? Each of those words and actions that we think may go unnoticed, how do we make sure that they leave a good impression and not a sour one? Listen to what Paul has to say about this in his letter to his disciple, Timothy. He says to preach the word and be prepared in season and out of season. Correct, rebuke, there's our word again that we talked about earlier, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction. Preach the word. So like teach it or explain the Bible, or like maybe this life book, you go find a friend, like you're explaining this to them, right? And then be prepared in season when you're ready, and out of season when you're not ready, when it's unexpected. Right? And then correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instructions. And as you go and as you're multiplying, right, have patience. Because it takes a while for those hard hearts to soften and turn to Jesus. And as you go, be careful with what you are saying and what you're teaching to others. And that's why our small groups exist. That's why in a few moments y'all are going to go to your small groups, and you're going to talk about these things. And your leaders are here for you to help you figure out, what does this mean? What is multiplication like? We've talked about it a little bit today, but how can I actually do this? They want to see you grow and thrive in this. The reality is, everyone here is not at the same point in the process. Right? Some of you may not believe in Jesus. And I want you to know, you are so welcome here. I'm so glad that you are here tonight. And you may disagree with what I have to say, and that is fine. It's okay to disagree with the guy that's talking on the stage, right? And that maybe you have other thoughts about who Jesus is. But I would challenge you tonight to ask those tough questions in your groups and to continue to seek the truth, because the truth is out there, and we want to help you along that journey. And some of you are believers, and some of you are not so sure about this whole multiply thing. And that's also okay. It's tough, it's messy, because we're talking about messy, imperfect people. All right? And so we're not asking you, if you're not sure about this multiply thing, we're not asking you like, you got to have this perfected and you got to be an expert by the time you leave tonight. No, that's unrealistic. That's not fair. Right? But what I am challenging you to, what I am asking you to do is consider how you might be able to take one step. Maybe you're praying about it. You're like, God, what the heck is this? What was he just talking about? Right? Maybe you ask a question in small group tonight about what this means for your life, how you can actually do this. Maybe your step is being honest with your leader and being like, hey, I don't really know what my next step should be. And that's okay. If that's your next step, be honest with your small group leader. But take a step. And some of you are ready, and you want to go, and you want to figure this out. And I think that is awesome. And we want to equip you to do that. And I would challenge you to share that with your small group leader tonight before you leave your small group rooms. Your leaders want to walk through that with you. They want to help you have those, who do you think Jesus is, conversations with your friends. And the reality is that all of us are constantly being influenced. Something or someone is always fighting for our attentions, even now. Right? The person next to you, your cell phone, whatever is happening, something's always fighting for your attention. Right? But we get to choose what we give that attention to. We have a choice on who is going to influence us and who we are going to influence. The choice to walk with Jesus and to make disciples that make disciples, to make multipliers that multiply, that's a choice we make daily. All of us, the staff, volunteers, leaders in the room, we choose Jesus every day. And if you remember anything tonight, remember this, that multipliers make multipliers that multiply for the sake of the gospel. Let's pray. Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you that you've gathered us here in this room to read your word, to talk about you, to learn about you. Lord, I pray as we go to small groups, Lord, that you would open up hearts, that you would soften hearts, that the conversations would be fruitful, that we would figure out what it means for each of these groups, for each one of us, to take a step, just one step towards making multipliers, make multipliers. Lord, teach us to love you. Teach us to want you. Lord, I pray that you would use each of these students for your glory. Lord, we love you. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.